morning. We are going to start this meeting by observing a moment of silence. I'd like to call this meeting to order, and we will start with the mission statement: transforming education, inspiring lives, empowering all. Pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This is a regular meeting with executive session of the Board of School Trustees of the Lake Ridge New Tech Schools, Lake County, Indiana, July 28, 2025 at 6:03 p.m. in the Lake Ridge Schools, 6111 Westwood Road, Gary, Indiana, 46408. Let the record show that all the board members and the superintendent are present. Let the record show the administrators that are present. Consider the attached accounts payable vouchers and the July 18th, 2025 payroll for payment. May I have a motion? Motion by Mr. Deal. May I have a second? Second by Mr. Buckley. Any questions or comments? All in favor? Aye. 5 yeas, 0 nays. Motion carries. Consider the minutes of the July 14th, 2025 school board meeting. May I have a motion? Motion by Ms. Neese. May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Bacon. Any questions or comments? All in favor? Aye. 5 yeas, 0 nays. Motion carries. Next, we have April Fitterling from Policy Analytics present on the financial impact of recent property tax law changes.
Well, good evening. Good evening. Like you said, I'm April Fitterling, and I'm with Policy Analytics. Prior to Policy Analytics, I was the CFO at Warsaw Community Schools for 8 years. And then 4 years prior to that, I was the deputy treasurer for 2 and the treasurer for 2. So kind of worked up in the business department, and then Policy Analytics has been exploding with all of the Senate Enrolled Act 1 changes, and so I joined them a little over a month ago. So tonight I will talk about all of those fun things with you guys. So Policy Analytics, we are out of Indianapolis, and we do data analysis for districts, actually government entities, on a parcel by parcel level data, parcel by parcel basis. So it's actual data pulled from your taxpayers, and so we're going to talk about those tonight. So we're going to talk about what Senate Enrolled Act 1 does to your, or may have an impact on your tax rate, your tax levy, and we'll touch a little bit about that impact to your taxpayers. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay, not too loud? Okay. All right, so first slide here is our net assessed value calculation. So we all know that net assessed value times tax rate equals our revenue, or our levy. So as assessed value has been continuing to grow the past few years, districts have been able to maintain their rate and generate more revenue. Or if they want to drop their rate a little bit, they would be able to sustain the revenue that they had prior. But now, due to Senate Enrolled Act 1, we are seeing that net assessed values, due to the deductions that have been implemented, are driving down net assessed value. So then in turn, to generate the same revenue that you were in the past, districts are having to raise their rates. So we'll get into that in a few minutes, but that's just kind of the basis of the calculation. As deductions drive the assessed value down to generate the same or more revenue, tax rates are going to have to increase, okay? So first we're going to talk about the changes, and then we'll talk about what it looks like for Lake Ridge here in your district. So homestead related changes. They are dissolving the standard deduction that used to be $48,000, just a base amount. So as your assessed value would grow on your home, that 48,000 became less of a value. So they are phasing that deduction out over the next 5 years until 2031, and they're implementing a new deduction or increasing the supplemental deduction to up to 2/3. So essentially, by 2031, the home values will only be taxed at a 33%, 1/3. So those are new deductions. Along with the deductions, they're creating a new local property tax credit. So this is a credit directly to the homeowners. It's a 10% or max of $300 to their tax liability. So for example, if I have a $200,000 home, my tax cap amount's $2,000. So 10% of that is $200. So I would not have to pay that $200. So that $200 does not now go to local governments.
Is that $200,000 home after the deduction?
That is before, yes. So then this credit is after. So that was just a kind of simple math, but the tax credit is an additional, and I'm going to refer to it as an additional post-Senate Enrolled Act 1 circuit breaker. So circuit breaker is revenue that you could have received, but you're not going to receive due to legislation. All right. The next change that they did was they made adjustments to the 2% property tax cap categories. So your non-homestead residentials, your long-term cares, agriculture, everybody in that 2% category, they're increasing that deduction upon the 2% tax cap category. Additionally, they're making changes to the ag base rate, going from 8 to 9%. And then, I thought I could keep bringing good news. And then they're creating additional changes to the business personal property tax. So prior to Senate Enrolled Act 1, there was a de minimis amount of $80,000. So any business, $80,000, piece of equipment, furniture, a piece of farm equipment, anything under $80,000 was tax exempt. Well, now they've increased that to $2 million. So as you can tell, $2 million to 80,000, that's a big jump. So in our calculations, we know what equipment is there right now. So that's in our projections. But what our projections do not hold is anything that's being purchased after 2025. So speaking of that, they also made a change to the value floor. So any equipment that was purchased prior to 2025 has a value floor of 30%. So it would follow the depreciation cycle, but it would bottom out at 30%. Well, anything purchased 2025 and beyond now depreciates to a zero value floor. So essentially, that property will then be tax exempt at that zero floor. What our calculations don't include are if businesses get smart and say, hey, I'm going to create an LLC, or I'm going to sell my old equipment and buy new equipment, because then I can take that value floor down to zero and have that equipment tax exempt. So we can't forecast that. It'd be great if we could. Then we'd be, mind readers, and we would solve all the problems of funding. But what our calculation has is the equipment prior to 2025 that falls under that 2 million category. And then finally, they made adjustments to the controlled project thresholds. So I know we're all familiar of that 40 and 80 cent. You have to have 2 hearings if you're doing a controlled project, but if you were over that 80 cents, you went straight to referendum. Well, now they lowered it to 70 cents. So this really doesn't affect you guys with the being above the threshold, because you're already there. so just wanted to mention that change. Okay, talking about Lake Ridge a little bit here. This first slide is just giving you a snapshot of where your net assessed value is. So where's the portions that make up your district? So really in 2025, you see residential is about half, about 46% there. Personal's just over 21, commercial 26, industrial 3, apartments 2.4. Well, in 2026, it really doesn't change much, because the only thing that has changed is that they implemented that 10% $300 max credit. and then the standard deductions, and that's a small jump. But by 2031, you'll see your chart really doesn't change too heavily, but you do see a shift from that personal down about 5%, and the commercial jumps up about 5%. Residential stays about pretty steady. So you'll see that your commercial would pick up that kind of overflow. So essentially the net assessed value is driving down a little bit. So we should have made the 2031 pie just a little bit smaller because it's less net assessed value, but just to give you a visual of what your net assessed value makeup is. Okay, so a couple things we'll talk about tonight. We're going to talk about two scenarios. So I think you're all aware of most districts manage to a tax rate. That's what most districts manage to, and then they get their levy based upon that. Well, Senate Rolled Act 1 has made some changes to that with net assessed values. Since we've not seen net assessed values going down in a while, net assessed values trending down kind of throw a change in the calculation. So if you want to manage to a levy, do you manage to what your levy was this year? Or do you manage to what your levy would have been post Senate Rolled Act 1? So I'm going to show you a couple scenarios using your actual tax rates. This doesn't take into account any debt falling off or debt issuance. This is just an example of what would happen to your tax rate to reach the same levy in 25, that's the levy-based scenario, or basing it on a rate scenario, keeping the rates the same as it is in 2025 to generate pre-Senate Rolled Act 1, the levies that would have been generated, projected in pre-Senate Rolled Act 1. So as you'll see, the levy stays the same. Pre-Senate Rolled Act 1, the rate would dip down a little bit because the assessed value was growing. You could generate the exact same dollars. But post-Senate Rolled Act 1, due to the net assessed value being driven down by the deductions and the credits, you'll see the rate increasing until approximately about 2031. So it goes up and then peaks out at 2027, and then it kind of creeps down a little bit, but it's definitely higher than where it's at. And then in the rate scenario, to generate the same levy that would have been generated, you'll see that the rate does increase to a peak of about 1.7138 out in 2035. So that's just an example of how to generate the exact same levy or levies that you would have generated prior to Senate Rolled Act 31 if the assessed values trend down like we are seeing in our projections. Okay, so let's talk about assessed value projections. The first line is the green line, which is your gross assessed value. That is based on market trends, home values. So as you can see, it's been trending up. The blue line is the net assessed value, and that's been trending up as well because as home values go up, the gross assessed value grows, and so does the net assessed value. Well, you'll see on the gross assessed value, you'll see that dip in 2027, and that's where that business personal property tax kicks in. So you kind of see the dip, that's what affects the gross assessed value. And then on the orange line, which is the post-Senate Rolled Act 1, you'll see the difference between what it would have been pre, the blue line. You'll see the assessed value dip down a little bit, but it almost flatlines for 26. But we also have a little earmark in there because we're actually hearing, since we've done our data, we did this based on a 2 to 4% projection on net assessed values, but the DLGF is looking at the cost tables for the commercial and industrial for their charts. So we may be seeing a little bit higher assessed value than we're projecting in this.
Could you explain to the board the difference between gross assessed value?
Absolutely. So gross assessed value, let's just say we'll take that $200 home example. So that $200,000 home is my home. My gross assessed value, it's what they say my house is worth. But then I have all of those deductions, the supplemental deduction, which then they're phasing out to the, the standard deduction that they're phasing out, and this supplemental deduction that they're increasing. So the net assessed value is your value on your home that is taxed after all of those deductions. So that's what is basing your revenue. Your revenue is based on that net assessed value. So we see the gross assessed value as that's your value of your home. All of the deductions brings it down to the net assessed value. So as they increase the deductions, that's what's driving down the net assessed value. If we do see a blip in 26 where they come back and say, hey, we're gonna have abnormal growth in the assessed value again this year, this chart would just kind of go up in 26, but with the deductions being implemented, it's just gonna continue to come back down until 2031, because that's when we have a new base floor when all of those deductions are set in place, and then it starts to creep back up. So really, the important thing from this slide that we're trying to share with all of our clients is it's not just a 1 year or 2 year, this is a 6-year implementation out until 2031 until we have a new floor. We're gonna have multiple legislations in there. We're gonna have a new governor term inside of there, a presidential term inside of there. So there could be lots of changes, but this is what we know as of now, and this is what we have to prepare for right now. Okay, the next slide is just an example of the total property tax rate if you manage to that levy in the debt service or the rate in the debt service. So as of now, you guys are sitting at $2.62. It's a change. And as it's projected within that assessed value and all of those deductions being in place, you'll see to manage to the same levy, which is the red line, the rate would increase to in 2031 just over $3.12. If you manage to the rate which generated the levy prior to Senate Enrolled Act 1 would have, in 2031 the rate would be up to approximately $3.41 some change. So this is a visual we just like to show. Some districts, if they're in that threshold between that 40 and 70 and they're teetering on either of those lines, they like to see this, and then that means they need to figure out where they're going to hit. But you guys are so over that threshold, really. You have some tough decisions to make going forward with this tax rate with these changes. So we'll get into that in just a minute. This is actually just a line graph of the numbers we looked at 2 slides before. So if you took the debt service tax rate, the slide before this was the total tax rate. This is just looking at the debt service rate. If in 2025 you're at $1.32 and some change, by 2031, if you're managing the levy, you'd be roughly at over $1.39. If you manage to the rate, you'd be just over $1.68. So it just is showing you kind of the pre and post Senate Enrolled Act 1 in a nice line chart. Okay. Okay, so they made changes to you, but then they also made changes on the local income tax side. So Lake Ridge does not receive any certified shares. That's direct revenue to districts. A handful of districts get some. I mean, it's kind of split 50-50 what districts get it. It's just based on the county and if they give those certified shares to districts. So good news there, you weren't receiving it anyway, so you're not going to feel that hurt. But there's a property tax replacement credit which the county does give to the taxpayers on their tax bills. So, looking at the DLGF, Lake County does give property tax relief or property tax replacement credit to homeowners prior to them making their paying their bills. So, just over $159 million is now going away for your county. So what that means for your taxpayers is that relief is coming away from their bill. The thing with your district is a little bit different because the majority of your taxpayers are at the tax caps already. So they're not having to pay more, but you guys are seeing a higher circuit breaker. So what that looks like, and it doesn't look good. Operations net levy for your forecasted future due to these credits that potentially puts you in the red and receiving less money than you'd be asking for. Because
how circuit breakers work. You ask for your levy and then they come back and say, oh, you're approved, but then you have your circuit breaker on top of that. So it's just revenue you're not receiving. So you'll see the impact in 26 from that homestead credit, or the 10% max rate, or 10% $300 max credit to the homeowners. And you'll see then the business personal property tax exemption coming into effect in 2027. And then in 2028, when that PTRC goes away to your homeowners, because they are a majority of the tax cap, that's what drives down your circuit breaker. So it means less revenue into your operations fund. So we see that implemented in 28, and then you'll see it climb back up. And that is due to as the net assessed value, as the MLGQ continues to grow, that will bump that back up. But let's take a look at what that post-circuit breaker credit looks like for your funds. So as of now, the current circuit breaker only hits your operations fund. The debt fund is protected. It's protected so you make your debt payments. S&P said we are not going to have schools with unfunded liabilities. So they protected the debt fund. Well, when they signed this into action, somebody forgot to put that in. So right now the debt fund is not protected. And currently, to our projections, approximately just under 64,000 at 63,400 would be hitting your debt service fund. And so where does that get paid from? It's just out of your cash balance. So if your debt payments are due and you don't bring in enough levy revenue to make that payment, you need to use some of that cash balance to make that payment. We really feel, that's the orange piece of that first bar. The blue bar, that's what hits your operations fund. So that's where that credit in 2026, that's why you see that first dip down in that operations levy on the last slide. That's just over 65,000 potentially hitting your operations fund. But looking at 27, so if you look at 27, we really feel that they are going to come back next summer or next spring and say, oops, we forgot to protect the debt fund. We're going to do it now. Because I feel like we're hearing that they are, and S&P has had long discussion of making sure Indiana's government entities, their debt fund is protected so we can make those meet those liability payments. So if that happens, if they protect that debt fund, that means that 2027 essentially would turn all blue, and that would be all operations hit. So in 2027, that's where you would see that just under 140,000 hit that operations.
This is 140 more than what they're already getting.
Correct. This is what we're calling it an additional post circuit breaker. Yep, exactly. So, looking at that operations fund bar graph again, or line graph, I'm sorry. If you look at the maroon line, that is what we are saying that our projections are showing. If they protect the debt fund, this is what it would look like into your operations levy. So not only would you be less, but you'd be $1 million less than pre-Senate Rolled Act 1, potentially. And I just want to put a little asterisk in on the first slide of showing the line graph of net assessed values. I made a note that in 2026, the assessed value might be higher. If that happens, this may bump this up a little bit, but it's not going to bump it up enough to continue. I think it may get you right at zero or right below zero. So it just depends on where that net assessed value comes in. It'd be great to be like, oh, if that AV comes in, we won't look this bad. Well, it's just kicking the can down the road a little bit because those deductions are being implemented. So finally, taking a little bit of a peek at your taxpayer impact. So we pulled the Gary Coram Calumet Township Taxing District, and the median homesteads there are at the cap. And the median homestead value is $93,000. If they're at the cap, this is just looking at what the impact is on the taxpayer if you manage to a rate or a levy scenario. Since they're at the cap, the exact same, because if they're at the cap, statutorily, they do not have to pay anymore. Okay? So, for the, historic taxpayer relief that, they were hoping for, we're not necessarily seeing it in our data. You can see they get a little, relief in 2026 due to that, credit. But because home values are going to trend up, because we are a market-based system and they are trending up, so will their, net assessed values, and so will their liability. So that's just a little peek at what the taxpayers may be seeing in your district. Okay, so this next slide is going to be probably a little difficult to see. So we have partnered with Lake Ridge to do the cash flow analysis and take a look at what's happening on a month-to-month basis and then forecast the cash flows out. And in doing so, kind of putting my former CFO hat on, and when I see expenditures outpacing revenues, it's a big red flag. And that's what we're seeing here. So projecting in 2026, really your baseline of your education and operation ending cash balance of your rainy day is one-time dollars. That goes away if you spend it. So really taking a look at that ending cash balance, which is kind of the blue highlighted line, that's where I would focus for now. As you can see, you had a little bump up, but it's trending down, and what we're forecasting based on these projections and the cash flows, it's looking pretty red there. So this is just a snapshot. We have had your data, and let's just see. This is June, so this is the most up-to-date data for the district. And in trending, it looks like will be in a negative cash balance potentially at the end of 2026. I know we forecast conservatively, but based on these changes, if it doesn't happen in 26, it's definitely happening in 2027, and then again in 28 and 29, and it would just continue to snowball. And then that's what leads us to this waterfall chart to just kind of show where the cash balances have been trending and where they're headed. So it is, a lot of it has to do with, there's a big chunk of it due to Senate Enrolled Act 1, but there's also some factors that even if that didn't go into effect, I think there needed to be some sort of I don't know, I want to call it an intervention or a look at expenditures or a look at revenue plan going forward. So this is what we put together for our cash flows to give you a sneak peek. The last few slides are just kind of for your reference to put it all on one sheet. So property tax revenue projections, first one is based on that levy scenario. So as you'll see is the certified levy, if we kept it the same in the debt service, what the certified levy would be for your operations fund and debt service. Then to show that circuit breaker, you'll see in 24 and 25, that's your traditional circuit breaker that we were talking about. That was hitting you before the changes. And then you'll see it just grow due to this changes in Senate Enrolled Act 1. And then you'll see your net levy for your debt and your operations fund. And then you'll see that circuit breaker percentage spike right up there due to those changes in Senate Enrolled Act 1. And then nice bar chart for you to see the different types of revenue for operations, debt, and then that circuit breaker loss, which almost doubles, and then your property tax rate down in the right-hand corner based on a levy-based scenario. And then the same is for the rate on the next slide. It just kind of gives you, it pulls it all together to say, okay, if we go with the levy-based scenario, here's what it could look like. If we go with the rate-based scenario, here's what it could look like. So just gives you kind of a platform to see which direction you might want to lead when you're looking at your debt and your operations revenue. And then just a summary slide, putting it all together. And just remember that assessed value, it's gross assessed value, the deductions drive the net assessed value down, and as it does that, to generate the same revenue or more, you need to adjust your tax rate increasingly to generate the same or more revenue. So with that being said, I know this is not an easy pill to swallow. That's a lot of bad news that I just shared on your revenue projections. Do you have any questions for me?
Does anyone have any questions for April? Yeah, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. We need money and we need it now.
April, I talked to a couple of legislators. They recognize their plan for year 2 and 3. So they're gonna have to make some adjustments. Are you seeing lots of schools? Real money, not really.
You know what's funny? Not funny. Every district is so different and they're made up of, that gross assessed value chart. Everybody's pie chart looks different. So here, because it's rural residential is at that cap already. And then with these changes, it really doesn't push because your 2 and 3% are probably already at their caps. So it's not really pushing any of that liability to that 2 and 3%. Other districts, because they have maybe a different flow to their pie chart, it's made up differently. Their 2 and 3% are not at that. Well, I guess I should say because the assessed value is lower here, and the others are at their tax caps, they're not able to capture that additional revenue as it pushes. Once you get it, it's essentially homeowners, they get that homeowners get that 1%, then it pushes to the 2%, then it pushes to the 3%, that liability with all these changes. There's nowhere to push that to here. Other districts, maybe less residential, but have a higher assessed value, and the 2 and 3% are not at their tax caps. So that's pushing the liability. So they're not being hit with more circuit breaker there. Those 2 and 3 categories
are picking up that additional tax liability, so this district's able to get more revenue from those 2 categories, the 2 and 3%. So we are seeing it. I can say districts with similar makeup as yours are seeing this exact same thing. Not every district in the state is being hit this hard. This is probably one of the hardest. And I've been doing this for over a month now, but I've been in the CFO role for a while. I've seen how different districts are hit by a circuit breaker differently. It's just really unfortunate that these changes hit your circuit breaker even harder than it already does. So, so if do you guys work with Stiefel?
Yes.
Okay. I'm weird to give you data, but Stiefel can kind of help you through this, and we can partner with Stiefel if you need to have those tough conversations of next steps and what that looks like for your district. So, nobody wants to say the word referendum, but I think it's something that needs to be discussed on the table because unfortunately, there's no other way for us school districts to generate revenue. We just can't make kids fast enough to move them in, and kids that are coming in, they're just coming in at smaller class sizes. Larger class sizes are graduating. Kids are going virtual. Kids are, it's not what it used to be. And districts, and I would say districts across the state are struggling with their ADM. Seeing a decline, especially your size of district, over 1,000 kids, was it over 1,500 kids-ish? Those are ones that get hit harder because, there's other schools are in close driving distance and it's almost cutthroat out there. It's where do you want to go? So, I wish I had better news. Because it breaks my heart when schools struggle due to legislation changes out of your control. So now you have to pivot and do what you can control, and it may not be fun.
No.
Thank you for your presentation, April. I mean, we kind of already knew what was coming, but having you explain it and then Yeah, thank you for your presentation. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and move on to public comment. I'm not gonna read this because no one signed in today, so we'll go ahead and we'll move on to the superintendent report. Dr. Primick.
Okay, just a few comments on the report you just got. Obviously, there's gonna have to be some serious conversations. You know, I'm working on developing financial considerations. That's not gonna happen overnight. I think we have to closely examine any new hires. Some, as we start the school year, have to, but we have to examine. I'm looking at conducting an independent staffing study, bring in outside source, get more information. Just see how we compare staffing wise with similar positions. There's gonna have to be some adjustments, and same way on the finances. I know what they're saying, considering bringing in someone with experience, identifying financial opportunities. There's gonna have to be some reduction in spending, a lot of reduction in spending. And you still may need it, but, can't continue business as usual, because as you see from the numbers, you know, you're looking at the end of 26, without cash. You know, Adrian, you probably agree. It might last a little longer because you got some rainy day money, but
And then that's what I was gonna say, is that, you know, the fact that we do have, you know, a rainy day balance right now is the only thing that's, you know, and, you know, April, you know, pretty much said everything that needed to be said. That's, you know, without that rainy day balance, you know, at the end of 26, we would have been in a hole. But even with rainy day, by end of 27, you know, unless we, you know, drastically make some changes, we will be out of cash. And, you know, unfortunately, the other thing that, you know, the charts kind of bore out is that, you know, with all these changes, that, you know, again, you know, the normal way of collecting property tax revenue, you know, through the normal levies, well, the credits, you're gonna eat all that up. So there'll be no other opportunity to generate revenue. So that's the things that keep me up.
because with what she's saying, you know, in 2 or 3 years, there will be no operation funds, period.
Well, there will be no more business as usual at Lake Ridge Schools. We are going to tighten up the reins on everything because we have no choice.
And so it's not gonna happen overnight, and I don't want to operate everyone jittery, but the reality is gonna have to be, it can't be done all at once, but many things can be identified. I know I'm in the process of getting hold of someone on health insurance, see the possibilities of the trust. Every little bit helps, but realistically, when you're talking these numbers, it's a people problem, because that's where 80% of your expenses are people, and that's gonna be difficult. It's gonna have to be addressed. So, on a more positive note, reminder on August 12th, the opening day, staff, does the entire board come, or they're all invited? That's the comment. You're certainly invited. It's gonna be, probably a little more brief than it has been in past years, because I want to make it so, second afternoon, they can really be, teachers can be working in their classrooms. Then our standard goals. Okay, academics, all learners will continuously demonstrate academic growth. Area 2, safety, will provide a safe and secure learning environment for all. Equity, we will provide a positive, inclusive, and equitable environment for all.
communication. We will improve communication and strengthen relationships both internally and externally. And finances, we will advocate to increase the financial resources of the corporation to provide an outstanding school environment and opportunities for students, staff, and community. And it is an exciting time as we're getting ready to start the school year. You know, there's a lot of hustle and bustle. Realistically, because people use it on the vacation. I have known a lot of people but after this week, everyone's pretty well back. And before we know it, it will be going. And Adrian may want to talk a little bit more. Fortunately, the water situation happened 2 weeks ago and not 2 weeks from now. You had a difficult time having school at the high school right after that, but they made dramatic progress on that. Adrian, do you have any more to add on that?
So, I mean, that's, that kind of hits it, just for the public's knowledge, and the board was already aware that, not last week, but the week before, when we had that little, supercell, thunderstorm blow through, it blew some of the, construction off of the roof because at Calumet, because, they were up there, putting, new, roof units up there. So some flashing had come off. And as a result, some rain poured into the second floor and kind of trickled down into the first floor, creating some water on the flooring. But to their credits, our contract partner MCOR pretty much was on site right away. They contacted the subcontractor roofer to button up the roof. They brought out the restoration and damage company, Servpro, to get these water extractors, the blowers going the right way. MCOR, totally recognizes that they are 100% on the hook for whatever damage we had. Thankfully, it is very low. The blowers have been doing a great job, so I don't believe we'll have to replace any carpeting up there. Some office supplies got damaged. I think a computer, a TV. So MCOR said pretty much, tell us how much it is, and we will cut you a check for the replacement. So, that's a good part, is that we won't have to file an insurance claim. So, as Dr. Kerman said, it's just a headache of, the fact that happened at all. The water was pouring into 3 or 4 classrooms upstairs at Calumet. So, the school had been going on, that would have been a major headache. But luckily, time was, on our side.
Okay, Cindy, you might want to make a few academic comments. I openly admit I'm more of a finance bean counter guy than I am a curriculum guy, and I'm leaning on her quite a bit, because we do always have to remember our main purpose is that we can't get into a situation of harming kids. We got to balance the act with the finances.
Yes, we are going to be starting our teacher PD next week. The teachers will be coming in for 3 days on the 6th, 7th, and 8th for our annual 3 days of summer PD with our staff to get ready to launch learning for this school year. We're excited about some new adjustments that we've made to provide more services and interventions to our students so that they can get the help that they need with their literacy and their math. As you'll see on here, we have a lot of new hires coming in, and we're fortunate that the new hires that we're bringing on, most of them are certified teachers, got on emergency permits, so we're excited about that as well. And we're going to be working hard this whole week putting together our PD for next week. We attended the New Tech PD last week with a group of our leadership team, and we're pretty excited about this year, about everything that we feel we're going to accomplish to meet the goals of helping our kids academically and seeing their growth and their progress. And although this is very stressful to hear, I think that we have the right teams to help move us forward to keep the needs of our students first.
And a portion of one of them days is going to be onboarding with new staff, correct?
Yes, right. Move on to leaves, resignation, and employment. All new employment to Lake Ridge New Tech Schools is contingent upon a cleared expanded criminal history background check within 30 days and a cleared expanded child protection index check within 60 days of effective date. IC 20-26-2-1.5 and Indiana Code 20-26-2-1.3.
Okay, you typically approve these all at once?
We're gonna have to approve them all at the end.
Okay. Okay. We're recommending accepting Ashley, I may butcher these names, but Elias' resignation from the instructional aide position at Longfellow, effective June 3rd. Recommending accepting Ariana Campbell's resignation from the school counselor position at the middle school, effective July 31st. We're recommending accepting Leanna Paz Stevens' resignation from the third grade teacher position at Longfellow, effective July 28th. We are recommending Rebecca Johnson be employed as an instructional aide at Longfellow Elementary, effective August 11th. Recommending Amanda Ridgegroom be employed as an instructional aide at Longfellow Elementary, August 11th. Recommending Angela Vasquez be employed as an instructional aide at Longfellow, effective August 11th. We are recommending Veronica McPherson be employed as a school counselor at Longfellow Elementary, effective August 4th. Recommending Anika Brooks be employed as an instructional aide at Longfellow Elementary, effective August 11th. Recommending Chandra Regans be employed as an instructional aide at Longfellow Elementary, effective August 11th. Recommending Darlene Payne Jennings be employed as an instructional aide at Longfellow Elementary, August 11th. Recommending Roy Hamilton be employed as a fifth grade social studies teacher at Lake Ridge Middle School, August 1st. Recommending Gabriel Brenson Campbell be employed as a 7th and 8th grade ELA interventionist at Lake Ridge New Tech Schools, effective August 1st. Recommending Alicia Banks be employed as a 5th grade English teacher at Lake Ridge New Tech Middle School, effective August 1st. And we're recommending Laura Stilivas be employed as a 3rd grade teacher at Longfellow Elementary, effective August 1st. I think we have most of the staff right now. It could be a few more. Did I miss any? Okay. No.
Oh,
Okay. I probably know. Recommend Emma Loomis be employed as a 3rd grade teacher at Longfellow Elementary, effective August 1st. Recommend approval of these leaves and resignation.
may I have a motion?
I make a motion.
Motion by Ms. Neese, may I have a second? Second by Mr. Deal. Any questions or comments? All in favor? Aye. 5 yeas, 0 nays, motion carries. All right, now we're gonna move on to new business.
Okay, we are recommending approving the attached list of non-resident student transfers. Okay. And we recommend approving the 25-26 athletic trainer contract. Recommend approval of the new business items.
May I have a motion? Motion by Mr. Buckley, may I have a second? Second by Mr. Deal. Any questions or comments? All in favor? Aye. 5 yeas, 0 nays, motion carries. Okay, that's all that we have. So we will go ahead and move on to closing comments. Mr. Buckley.
I appreciate policy analytics coming out. It's hard news to hear. I think anybody that follows what happens in Indianapolis and various school finance, you solve all the stuff. So we have to prepare. We
my opinion, we have to make very drastic changes, and we need to do it quickly because we're gonna run out of time very quickly. 2 years in a school system, 3 years in a school system, it's gonna find a heartbeat. It's not like any time at all in school system time measure. I believe it can be done. Truly believe that it can be done. And, if we're gonna continue to have the Lake Ridge District, we have to. Otherwise, I don't know, it'll either go away or be absorbed somewhere. So, and I don't want to see that happen. I don't want to see that happen in the community that I live in and that others live in and everybody on board lives in. And, so I truly believe that we're all committed to making whatever changes are necessary. With that, I thank you and have a good evening.
Ms. Neese? Ms. Neese, yep. Sorry.
That's why, because of all the things that I'm learning that I never learned before, so I think we can all,
Knowing this board the way we've been the last few months especially, we're gonna do the best we can for what the community and our students need, I know that for sure. So just have to put our thinking caps on a little bit better, I guess. But I know we'll succeed. That's it.
Thank you, Louise. Mr. Deal?
Well, unfortunately, the news we got tonight isn't very rosy, but knowing the people of this community and the people that have gone to these schools over the years, we're not gonna give up.
We're not either.
Huh?
We're not either.
Okay, true. But, we got some drastic changes we're gonna have to look at, implement, and try to find some other sources for funding, because it don't look like the state is really on our side. As a person that has been in and around these schools since I started first grade in 1953. I'm not willing to give up on our mission. Calumet Township Schools belongs to be in this area. Always have and always should be. I think people, the new people in this community, which there are very many, someone gotta stand up and support us so we can move forward. With that, thank you for your time. Glad to see you tonight, Kelly. Thank April for being here. I wish us all the best. God bless each and every one of you.
Thank you, and Mr. Bacon?
Just saying what everybody else is saying, last time Policy Analytics was here, they're giving us to about 2030 before we're underwater, and that definitely got punched in the face today on that. Now we're about 4 years earlier than that, so, we're making changes. We understand that we have a serious issue. We're gonna get at it and do what we can do about it. That's all we can do. Thanks for everybody coming out.
Absolutely, thank you. Mr. Wilkerson?
Thank you, Madam President. Everyone, I just want to kind of echo that. It's going to take all of us. It is going to take a long, hard look at, how business is done at Lake Ridge. But, that being said, as, Mr. Deal, so put it, is that, since, the state is not going to chip in anytime soon with, any additional revenue, we're going to have to look at funding as well. And so it's that, we can't We can't fund our way out of it, but we can't cut our way out of it either. Because at the end of the day, the mission of the school district is to, educate our kids and to get these kids ready to, become, productive citizens and, members of the community. And, in order to, and again, that, if Calumet Township Schools, Lake Ridge Schools is to persist, and I 100% believe it should, it's that it's going to take everyone working together to move forward. And so, other than that, everyone just stay cool because it is hot, and when as the kids come back, that's another thing that we're kind of look at is that make sure that the construction is going along. But there will be some days that, because of, the air conditioning is being worked on, there might be some days where it becomes, make sure you hydrate and, wear, loose fitting, but, appropriate clothing. But, just to kind of keep aware of that until, summer ends. So, thank you, Ron.
Thank you, Mr. Wilkerson. Mrs. Trevino. Just want to thank you, Kelly, for being here today. Thank April. I know we're at a tipping point in our district, but I believe that we can face this with seeing this as opportunity. Sometimes necessity is the author of invention, so I think we can innovate, and I believe that we can come out better and be an example to others of what this district can do. We've been leaders in the education sector in the past. I believe that we could get there again. And I think that we're just going to see our strengths shine through in how we're going to be able to tackle these challenges and come out ahead of the game for our kids and our community. Because we're warriors, and that's what we do. We don't give up. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Trevino. Dr. Kerman.
Certainly. Pretty well all said. Do our best, start tackling it one bite at a time.
Anything else, Dr. Kerman?
No, I don't think so. Look forward to school year's here. Look forward to it. It's an exciting time.
I'm just going to say, like I said earlier, it will no longer be business as usual at Lake Ridge Schools anymore. We are at mission critical, and community members, will you help us? Staff members, will you help us? If we are one, then that means everyone needs to pull their own weight all across the board. Parents, we need your help. Students, we need your help. Staff, we need your help. We need everybody's help to make this happen. And like you said, Mrs. Trevino, warriors do not quit. I do feel some of our warrior spirit coming back. I hope we can tap into that and keep the momentum going, because we are not going to give up. We are going to save our school district legally. We're going to do it legally. We'll figure it out somehow, because we always do. With that, I need a motion to adjourn. Motion by Ms. Neese. May I have a second? Second by Mr. Buckley. This meeting is adjourned. Motion carried.